Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Jays Fifth Down Podcast. I'm here once again with Cade Tjomsland of the NFL Study Hall Podcast. Glad to have him back on to recap the Texans NFL draft and, just to talk about that. And then we're going to get into Jordan Love and is he ready to take over in Green Bay? And also what NFL coaches are on the hot seat coming into 2023. We're going to get to all of that here on the podcast. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe, check us out. Check out Cade's channel as well as mine on YouTube and all podcast platforms. We're here to give you everything you need to know about football and the NFL, all that good stuff. So, Cade, thank you for coming on today.
For sure, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. So, let's get into it, man. The Texans, great draft, man. I think they did a great job in this draft. CJ Stroud, obviously that first pick with number 2. Then they trade up. So just give me your thoughts on that, man, and how they did this year.
Well, let me be honest, bro. I was very nervous they were actually going to trade away that number 2 pick. There had been some rumors that as soon as Bryce Young goes out at first, they'll settle for an Anderson or Levis later in the draft. I obviously didn't want that. I was stoked that they kept with it, and then mid-draft they go ahead and trade for the number 3 overall pick. The over-aggressiveness of it. Listen, we haven't had that type of play in a draft in a really, really long time. So I was absolutely stoked to see that. Hey, look, Nick Caserio is wanting to do something with his team. D'Amico Ryans wants to get this team better. He wanted Will Anderson Jr. to be his defensive guy, which I'm absolutely stoked about. You get your franchise quarterback, then you get your star talent who, honestly, right now has a really good chance of being defensive rookie of the year. I mean, he is primed to be in that position in the AFC South with the Houston Texans. I love the over-aggressiveness of the whole thing. Now, I was a little hesitant when I first saw the trade because it was the number 12 overall pick, their first pick in the second round, as well as a 2024 first rounder. It was a lot for just that number 3 overall pick, but they at least made the correct pick. There had been a lot of times in the past where the Houston Texans have just made bad picks in the right spots. This year, they got to that spot and they made the right pick. So I'm absolutely stoked about that. These are guys that you can build a franchise around. Last time I was on this podcast, Jay, I mentioned how you have to have the guys who are going to establish your team so other teams can come here. That's what the Houston Texans went out and did. They're going to go grab their star quarterback. They're going to go grab that. I mean, we saw Aiden Hutchinson go off last year. We've seen other defensive rookies in the position of Will Anderson Jr. step up to the plate and make a big impact their rookie year. I think he's got the amazing potential to do that. Then you go into the rest of the draft. Now, we didn't have another pick till the very end of the second round with the number 62 overall pick, which we traded up to get. We gave up 3 other picks in the draft to go get Juice Scruggs, center from Penn State. And listen, Scott Quisenberry, who's our current center right now, was ranked 40th of centers last year. And if you do the math of only 32 centers in the NFL right now, and our guy's number 40, it's not great. The fact that this guy comes out there, he only allowed 1 sack all of his final year of college. He is the man to do it out of Penn State. I love that pick. Love how they're going to help out the offensive line. I mean, we said that quarterback was number 1. Go out and get a wide receiver. That was my opinion, but they do that in their 4th pick. We'll get to him in a second, which I love. Mm-hmm. Go out and get your wide receiver. Then go help out your defensive line. They'll do that with Will Anderson Jr. and help out your offensive line. Their first 4 picks got everything they needed. And then I obviously said they needed a linebacker to help out their run defense. Will Anderson Jr. can be a linebacker at times, and they also go out and get a linebacker with their 6th pick as well. So all their picks, honestly, were the correct ones. They got everyone off the board that they needed to. I was stoked about that. Number 4 pick, Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver out of Houston. This is actually a guy that CJ Stroud personally called the GM and head coach and said, trade up, get me this guy. Nathaniel Dell actually went out and texted CJ Stroud saying, hey, come get me. I want to be here. I want to play with you. And they did that. He's a little bit undersized, so this means that Nico Collins is going to have to step up in a big way for the Houston Texans because now he's basically their only big wide receiver right now because Robert Woods ain't a big guy. Mitchie he's all right. I think he's about the size as Robert Woods. And Nathaniel Dell's only 5'8", right? He's going to be a little bit of a speedster, which is all right. but that just means Nico Collins is going to have to be that big outside wide receiver. But this man, Dell led the NCAA in this last year in both yards and touchdowns with D1 wide receivers with almost 1,400 yards and 17 touchdowns. The man knows how to score. The man knows how to get open. He's going to have a star wide receiver, or he's going to have a star quarterback. He's going to have other people to help him out. Damian Pierce is going to help out the running game. They beefed up the offensive line to get that working. I was absolutely stoked with everything so far the Texans have been doing. Go down the list some more. In the 4th round, they go up and pick the defensive end from TCU, Dylan Horton, who had 10.5 sacks last year with 15 tackles for loss, 4 passes deflected, and a forced fumble. This is a guy that led a team to a national championship. You really can't take that for granted whatsoever. This guy knows how to win. He knows how to get in there. He's going to get paired with Will Anderson Jr. and Jonathan Grenard, who had a potential. He didn't have a great year last year, but he has potential. And then Jerry Hughes, who had 9 sacks last year, right? You're looking at a defensive line that just got all of a sudden completely revamped and can take advantage of weaker offensive lines like the Tennessee Titans, the Indianapolis Colts. And to be fair, that Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line can be weak at times too. Last 4 picks, Henry Toto from the linebacker from Alabama. There we go. Address the linebacker position. You grab Will Anderson Jr. and Toto from Alabama. I love that pairing. Jarrett Patterson, another center from Notre Dame. Good pick. Xavier Hutchinson, another wide receiver, this time from Iowa State. Just keep ramping up that wide receiver core. And then their last pick in the 7th round was Brandon Hill, safety from Pitt, who will be an excellent backup for a few years, could potentially start as well. Overall, the things I listed out last week when I was on this podcast, they went out and got at some point early in this draft. They were aggressive. They said, hey, this is our time. We don't have to get rid of people. We don't have to get rid of money. We can get rid of 1 or 2 picks, and we can go get arguably the best player of this entire draft in Will Anderson Jr. and get our star quarterback for the future. These guys want to be in Houston. I mean, Will Anderson Jr. said it himself. He's like, I went to Houston and I wanted to be a Texan. This is where I wanted to be. And they said, you know what? Let's just get it all. Let's get it all done. And they didn't really have to get rid of that much either. I mean, when you think about getting that 3rd overall pick compared to what the Panthers had to give for the number 1 overall pick, doesn't even pale in comparison. We have another 1st round pick next year as well, because I think we got rid of ours instead of the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns might actually be worse than us, which means we got rid of the correct pick. The whole system, in hindsight, in the moment I was like, wow, that's a lot from the number 3. But in hindsight, the energy that I keep getting from everyone on social media and how much these guys want to be in Houston and completely start this team from the ground up and make this their franchise. The energy with D'Amico Ryans now at the helm. Nick Caserio is finally getting on a rhythm like he had been in New England. I am stoked for this season. I had a guy come up to me and think I was just going to go 4-13 next year again. To me, this team has the potential of going 6. I mean, I think it's going to be more like 6-11, but you could see a 9-8 season come out of the Houston Texans next year. I loved it. For me, this draft was an A. I'm not going to say it's an A+. It wasn't perfect, but it's a solid A. I think they did as well as they could for where they were at.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great draft by the Texans, especially like you said, getting that your star quarterback, your star defensive player, and, a receiver as well, who went to Houston. So he's staying right there in the Lone Star State, Nathaniel Tank Dell. I've been a huge fan of his. I think he, like I said, he led the NCAA in receiving yards and touchdowns at his size to do that. I mean, you're getting a very explosive player right there. It's going to help out that offense. So I'm excited to see how he does right there. But moving on to our next segment, man, Jordan Love re-signed by the Green Bay Packers to a 1-year contract extension with $13.5 million guaranteed, worked up to $22.5 million for 2024. So let me ask you this, Cade: is Jordan Love ready to take over the ring? I mean, well, he kind of has to be, but do you think he is ready?
I think he has to be. I don't think he has a choice. I think he is. I never watched a lot of Jordan Love in college. Didn't really know about him. I remember that draft going, This just happens to be the number one quarterback in this draft, but he's not that great. I couldn't even tell you where he came out of college. I had no care for Jordan Love when he was coming out of college, when the Packers drafted him. The only thing I remember is how much Aaron Rodgers then hated the organization for drafting in their first round a backup quarterback rather than a receiver to help them win championships. But all that being said, I do know the kid has talent. He's got some decent wide receivers who proved themselves last year. I'm not going to take anything away from Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. The greatest news for Jordan Love is that he's got a running back core that can definitely carry the load in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. In my opinion, that's probably the most underrated duo of a running back core in the National Football League. I don't think we ever talk about them enough. These guys, when they're at the top of their game, they can handle any defensive front in the NFL. Aaron Jones was an amazing talent before he got AJ Dillon, and AJ Dillon can pound it up any defensive front when it comes into the red zone, right? They did lose some key players. They lost Robert Tonyan, which I'm an old style type of quarterback, but I love my tight ends to just dip and dunk to them. So the fact that you lost that core guy for this quarterback who's coming in for his first season to fully start a team, it's going to be tough. They're in a tougher division now. The Bears got better. The Lions are very good. And the Minnesota Vikings, I think, will just always kind of be decent to good.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in a tough division to work with. It's a tough place. Lambeau Field will not give you any love if you're not good. He's going to have to win in order to stay. The Packers might have a high draft pick next year, and they might they won't be bad enough to take on a Caleb Williams, but like a Drake May or someone else could be high enough for them to take them if Jordan Love. I mean, we're going to talk about coaches on the hot seat in a second, but Jordan Love, even though they just signed him to a 1-year contract, he's on a hot seat himself. Is he ready? Yes. Will he succeed? Don't know. I think he's as ready as he could be, though. When you sit behind Aaron Rodgers for 2 or 3 seasons, whenever he got drafted, this is as ready as he could be.
Yeah, that's fair. That's valid. I think, when he did play in the limited time he got, he didn't play horrible. Some spots he didn't play that well, but like I said, it's just going to take time, and we'll see. Like I said, he is on that short leash, so he's got to come in and produce. Like, seriously,
yeah,
he's got to come in and produce. But yeah, now moving on from the Packers and Jordan Love, now we're entering into a year where a lot of coaches in the NFL are on a spot where like they gotta get it going, or else it could be bad for them. So who are some coaches to you that are on the hot seat this year?
To me, the biggest coach on a hot seat is by far Brandon Staley from the Los Angeles Chargers. Mm-hmm. This guy was kind of on the hot seat last year, and they kept him, and they decided to get rid of their offensive coordinator, and they bring in, I think, Kellen Moore. That's right. Yeah. That's right. So they bring in a solid offensive coordinator, right? But if they still can't win now, because they were able to keep Austin Eckler, I think requested a trade,
he never got a trade.
But he didn't get it, right? Okay, so you somehow keep Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen are healthy. You drafted Quentin Johnson in the first round. Your offense is stacked. Your offensive line is still good. Your defense still has Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Joseph Jackson Jr. You cannot just sit out, either miss the playoffs or get knocked out in the first round after blowing a huge halftime lead. I mean, like, the potential. I had this team last year going 14-3. That it blows my mind how poorly this team is doing. And I know they've had injuries. I know Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were only on the same field like 4 times last year. I get that. But for the team to underproduce the way they have, for Joseph Jackson Jr. to go from potential defensive player of the year to one of the worst cornerbacks in the NFL, for Justin Herbert to simply fall off a cliff when it comes to scoring touchdowns. He's a big play guy. He'll get yards. But when it comes to leading his team to wins, him failing to do that, the coaching staff making poor decisions on 4th downs and bad play calls and stuff like that. with the talent that we know this team has, to me, is completely unacceptable. If Brandon Staley, this is essentially the same team he had last year with a few guys to help him out, and they're all healthy. Last year they obviously were hurt. They're all healthy. This team on paper should handle any other team in the NFL, but history says they won't. And I'll be honest with you, I think they'll do the exact same thing they did last year. Not win their division, make the playoffs, go out first round. At this rate, I have nothing else to trust them at. That's in my AFC. And that's my biggest coach of the year on the hot seat, but he comes from the AFC. If I had to pick one from the NFC, I know it sounds crazy, but Jonathan Gannon, first-year head coach into the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay.
This is a guy who came in and immediately was hated by the media with that viral clip of him meeting, what was it, Buda Baker? Or who did he meet? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
that clip?
I know. I'm trying to think who it was.
It wasn't Buda. It was some other veteran, though.
Yeah.
And, I remember watching First Take and and listening to all the other radio shows on ESPN, and everyone was trashing on this guy, right? So the media already doesn't like him. And as a GM, you want your leader to be the most well-liked. And right now the media doesn't like him. I don't know how the players think of him, but from what I'm getting right now, it's not a good look. You also have a team that DeAndre Hopkins just came out and said he wanted to stay in Arizona, right? You have one of the best receivers in the NFL. You have a huge contract on your quarterback. You have a decent running back core. You have a semi-good defensive back, although I do think they helped that I forget who they drafted, but I think they helped the defensive side as well. It's not a star-studded cast, but I think it'd be an understatement to say that this team underperformed last year. If Jonathan Gannon can't get this team turned around, coming from, I believe, the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Former defensive or offensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles, right?
Yeah.
He comes from that winning society, comes over to Arizona. You can't win in that first season and nobody likes you. The culture is already bad for him right now. You could see an easy one and gone from Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a shame, dude. I didn't think about Jonathan Gannon. That's crazy. I mean, yeah, he's got to come in and got to win. You got to do something because Arizona right now is just messed up, man. The culture's messed up. It's just right. It's not good right now, and Buda Baker already requested a trade. We're going to see what happens with him. See, I mean, if he gets moved or if he stays, we'll see. But it just doesn't look good for the Cardinals, man. I mean, Kyler Murray's going to be out for a good portion of the time. So it's what's going to happen with Arizona, man? I don't know, bro. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. But
who you got? Who do you got for hot seat?
I would definitely say Brandon Staley. I agree with you on that one. Like you said, he's been on hot seat since last year. The Chargers have got to figure out a way to get it done. Other than that, man, honestly, like you said, I can see Gannon. I don't know. I mean, as far as coaches right now, I can't really see anybody else. Okay, you know what? I could say, maybe Dennis Allen, possibly, in New Orleans.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. With Derek Carr coming in, that defense is still solid. They're going to be healthy. Yeah, they just got a safety in the draft, I want to say. Yeah, I could in a weak division, take advantage of that division with a star-studded quarterback and some good running backs because they also got Jamal Williams from Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dennis Allen can't get because that team also underperformed last year. Now, granted, they had Jameis Winston to start the year, and he kind of just fell off a cliff, so I can't really blame him too much. But, yeah. No, I like that. Would you put Mike McCarthy on the hot seat?
In Dallas, you know what? Actually, yeah, I could. I could. I mean, yeah.
That was the other one. In the NFC, I was deciding between Mike McCarthy and Jonathan Gannon. I'm going to put Gannon first because he's got a horrible situation. Mike McCarthy kind of has a culture already semi-built. He just can't win in the playoffs. But, I mean, Dallas is a winning team. If you can't win in Dallas, you shouldn't be there. And Mike McCarthy has gotten to the playoffs. he's been in a position to win, and he can't win. In my opinion, Mike McCarthy shouldn't be on the hot seat. I think he's done fine. I don't see how you could fire Mike McCarthy after, 3 seasons he's been there, and let who was the guy before Mike McCarthy?
It was Jason Garrett.
Yeah. He was there for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And he barely did as much as what Jonathan Gannon or what Mike McCarthy's been doing, right? In my opinion, Mike McCarthy has not done so bad where you can fire him this soon. If you're going to let Jason Garrett here for like 8 seasons, you can't fire McCarthy after a few seasons. You just can't do that.
Yeah, and you can't, and I can't say I blame it all on McCarthy either, man. You know, it's just a part of it has been the quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott is a $40 million quarterback, but he's not playing like it, especially when he needs to. You know, and they're not getting the job done in the playoffs. You know, with a very great roster, talented roster. You know, but they're just he can't. You know, he's just. I just don't think Dak is worth that, man. I don't think he's. I think. If the Cowboys if they do this again next year, man, I don't know. If I'm Dallas, man, I think.
If they don't make the playoffs, I'd say that. If they make the playoffs and get to the divisional round again, which I think they got a good chance of doing, I don't see how you can fire him. The divisional round is like you're the last 4 teams in the conference.
Yeah.
That's a good season. That is a good season. We just have the Dallas Cowboys on such a pedestal of a winning culture, which is hilarious because they haven't won anything since the 90s.
Yeah.
Because we've put them on that pedestal, we expect them to go farther, and they keep disappointing us. Compare that to any other team who's done better. Like if the Pittsburgh Steelers, who again have won 2 Super Bowls in the last 2 decades, but like if they got to a divisional round, that'd be a successful season for them. Name another team that could get there that doesn't have the same winning culture, would call that a successful season.
Falcons,
exactly, right? Like that's a successful season. But the fact that the Cowboys, like, it's almost
wild card for the Falcons.
Yeah, seriously. It's like if you were to take the Los Angeles Clippers in NBA and call them having bad seasons because they can't get to a conference championship. It's like, no, those are good seasons. They're just like one step away. They'll get to the end and they're one step away. And that's how the Cowboys are. I don't see how you can just obviously you can make minor adjustments here and there. And if you really see a culture shift, then make a change. Like that was there for their previous quarterback. I don't know why his name keeps escaping me. Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett. Like that, there was a culture problem with Jason Garrett, but
yeah,
I don't really see that much in Dallas right now. You just got to keep going and hopefully let that pass that last hump.
Yeah. I don't think the culture is a big problem. It's just the quarterback, man. It's Dak Prescott. He just isn't getting it done, you know, and he's not playing up to the contract that he has. So if he can't get, you know, if he can't provide better play for them next season, you know, and better decision making, and I think it's a possibility Dallas moves on, dude. I would. I mean, you gotta have a guy at that position that's gonna, you know, that's gonna win football games, gonna make the right decisions, and Dak just has it to me. He puts up great regular season stats. Don't get me wrong, dude. Dak's a solid quarterback, but man, he gets to the postseason where it matters, he can't get it done. So
yeah, I definitely wouldn't settle for less though. Like, make sure you're getting a top rookie or another solid guy. Don't just settle for your backup. Because Dak Prescott, like you said, is a solid quarterback. He just hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs.
Right.
So, but we'll see how long the Dallas Cowboys are willing to last with him.
We'll see. Like I said, and I'm not only, you know, no Cowboys fans, please don't come after me in my on my socials or in the comments. I'm not hating.
You can come after me. You can come after me. I don't care. I got you. I got you.
Even though I despise the Cowboys. But don't go. I'm not hating on Dak. I just he can't get it done in the postseason. So I think he's a solid quarterback. I do think he's a solid quarterback. I just don't think he's worth the money he's getting right now. So that's my take, man.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah. So, but Yeah, Cade, thank you for coming on the podcast, man. Chopping up with us, reviewing the Texans draft. I think they had one of the best classes this year. All the teams, along with maybe the Eagles too, but they had a great class this year. Great players they picked up. I'm excited to see C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, and those guys. Tank Dell as well. I'm excited to see them play next year for Houston and see how they do, man. But thank you for coming on.
For sure. Always a pleasure, Jay.
Of course, man. So make sure you guys check out Cade's show. Where YouTube, and all podcast platforms there, and mine as well. Same thing here on YouTube. We're gonna be providing you with all you need to know as far as the NFL and everything. So it's gonna be a fun, next couple months in the off season, getting into mini camp, and eventually the season will be here soon, Cade. So
yes, sir.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you, man. All right.
Have a good one, brother. Peace out.
You too, man.